Hi guys. So it's a little later in the day, and I thought I would take a moment to talk about one other topic that might be helpful. So when I started the keto diet, everyone talked about the keto flu and how to avoid the keto flu or how to get through the keto flu. And I have to tell you, I didn't get the keto flu. And the reason why I think that I didn't get the keto flu is I was already starting to adapt to this type of eating. Not fully, but I was on the track. So I've been toying with the idea of maybe sometimes, and for some people, it's best to do a slow adaptation into keto to avoid the pitfall of the keto flu. If you don't know what the keto flu is, it's the transition time between your body being a carb or sugar burner to your body being a fat burner. And this time frame is different for everyone to enter, but it's generally settled on that it takes about a week. During that time, people report symptoms like headaches, lethargy, moodiness, just downright, you kind of feel like you have a touch of the flu, even achy bodies. I didn't have that because I was already eating very similar to keto when I started, just not as high fat. I had begun by doing like gluten free. My daughter has what we think is celiac. She hasn't been officially tested, but when we cut out gluten out of her diet, like her stomach, her issues, her physical issues were almost non-existent. So we had already, as a household, pretty much switched over to gluten free. Then I found Whole30 eating through a girlfriend that was doing it at my gym, and she told me about it. So I decided to try that. And Whole30 is basically not necessarily a diet, but it's an elimination. They call it an elimination diet, but you do something for 30 days. Everything that you eat is whole foods, and there's no sugar, there's no grains, there's no dairy, and I forget what else. Oh, no artificial additives of any kind. So it's a very whole food, grain-free type of eating. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was just way too strict for me to stay on for that amount of time. And we traveled for my youngest daughter's cheerleading competition, and it was nearly impossible to stay on that way of eating, even though I actually brought a ton of my own food with us. But I couldn't predict being away from the hotel room for 8 or 9 hours at a time, and it was just impossible for me personally to stick to it. So I fumbled and I kind of stopped eating that way fully. But however, because I had felt so good on that type of eating, I kind of stuck to it somewhat. So anyways, when I discovered keto and discovered, hey, wow, this is actually very similar to what I'm already doing, but allowable foods on keto that weren't allowed on Whole30 piqued my interest because I love dairy. And even though I did stay away from it for almost 3 weeks on Whole30, it's just not something that I wanted to be away from. So when keto said, hey, dairy is part of, what you want to do, it's part of the diet, if you can handle it, of course. So, and of course, all the reasons that I had talked about earlier, that keto is good for people that are having a hard time losing weight, or have a thyroid issue, or have severe carb cravings. So that didn't necessarily go away on Whole30 because you could still have lots of sweet potatoes and whatnot. And I would of course overdo it on the potatoes because even though they're a whole food and they have great minerals and lots of good stuff in them, I would overeat them quite a bit. So anyways, there might be something to gradually getting into keto so that it's not such a crazy transition. So maybe start with gluten-free. Maybe start with switching out products that currently have gluten and start to move yourself away from grains. If you can get away from grains for a couple of weeks, just in general, you're gonna feel better. You will, I promise. It was almost instantaneous for me. And then maybe the next week you up your fats by 30 grams, and and then you lower down anything that you're consuming carb-wise. Then start to substitute. If you use like sugar creamer in your coffee, switch to stevia. Do things that promote not eating sugar, lowering carbs, and still upping your fats. And if you can do that, over a period of time, then by the time you're actually set up and you're ready to do keto, I recommend making sure you've done your grocery trip, you've got a fully stocked kitchen. Sorry, phone is ringing. And I lost my train of thought. Fully stocked kitchen, you're ready to go for keto, you're ready to eat, and then keep things like bone broth handy because it's full of salt and it feels, comforting in cold weather. And what else? Oh, magnesium for supplementation and making sure you get enough fiber with what you're eating. So it could be a gradual change. I mean, because if you're eating McDonald's 3 times a week right now, and pizza and donuts and bagels, or even if you're eating whole unprocessed foods, but it's a lot of grains and it's a lot of complex carbohydrates, switching over to a keto diet is going to shock your system. And I want this transition to be as easy as possible, as easy as it was for me. So, maybe gradual adaptation is how you do this. You just have to recognize that not everything's going to happen overnight. So if that's something you're thinking about and you need, pointers or ideas, please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know. Also, if there's any other topics that you want me to talk about or you want me to address, also leave questions. I'd be happy to discuss them with you. So that's my little blurb for the remainder of the day. Have a great one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.